Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pokemon Masterclass series. I'm your host, PokéNav, and each episode I bring you experts from across the Pokemon card world to take your knowledge of the TCG to the next level. Now, guys, with this being the first episode, I thought it would be appropriate to bring on somebody who has a ton of experience when it comes to interviews and podcasts, and it seems like he is adding a new one to his repertoire every single week. Please welcome everyone, the king of Pokemon podcasts, PokemonRadar. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you for that kind introduction. It's kind of funny being on the other side of that finally. I haven't had much time to do other people's podcasts as requests have come in, but I've finally found a groove where I can kind of set some time aside to start hopping on people's other on their channel. So I'm happy to be here.
Well, and I certainly appreciate it. And I know that my community is going to appreciate it as well. And really, for me, this is kind of a full circle experience because earlier in 2020, when I was actually considering starting my own YouTube channel, and one of the things that I wanted to do was to have a podcast of my own or just a series like this where I could interview people like yourself. And I remember back then, listening and watching your original podcast, the PokeRadar podcast. And I think it was probably, I think it was with PokeRev at that time. But it was definitely highly influential. I remember listening to it and thinking, man, how cool would it be to not only be able to sit down with these guys, but to actually have them on and to garner some of that knowledge that they've gained throughout the years and some of that expertise, and then be able to share it also to the wider community. So to now be sitting down with you, it really is a full circle experience. So I do appreciate you being here, man. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hop right into it.
So for obviously for me, I've been following you for a while now. Back when, like I said, you started your original podcast and kind of been keeping tabs on your journey and everything like that. But for those that may not be familiar with you, would you mind go ahead and giving the community just a little background on yourself and how you got to where you are now? Obviously, you're a pretty prolific sealed Pokemon cards collector. That's kind of where you've stamped your name on the
hmm
hobby. But it wasn't always that way, and we all have our origin stories on what influenced us to get into this and how we've gotten to where we are now. So where did it all start for the young Radar?
Well, it's funny, I just did a podcast with the store owner that I shopped at as a kid, who's still in business today, with Dave, and me and my brothers would go there after school usually to buy whatever card game we were into. And of course, it started with Pokemon. I mean, I was 6, 7 years old in 1999, and I was the youngest of the three boys. I got a little sister as well, but we were just following what the oldest brother was doing. And thankfully, he was kind of the nerd of the family. So he was into this stuff, in the Magic, into Dragon Ball Z, and into all the different animes. And we were kind of just following in his footsteps. Um, and we got into just about everything a little bit here and there, because he was always switching around what was coming out, what was the hot thing. So Pokemon lasted through, base set through the gym series, at least from what I can recollect from my memories. Uh, and from there, kind of transferred over to Dragon Ball Z. Like I said, that's where Pokemon Radar comes from, the Dragon Ball Radar and Pokemon. And then quickly, left all that to go play basketball and kind of live that life. So um, it wasn't until 2015 where I rediscovered Pokemon, and I guess the nostalgic uh, feelings that I had been hiding for so long. Kind of like we all kind of were closeted nerds back in the day. We just never really let it out. So it finally came out around that time when Pokemon Go and Evolutions came out. Uh, and just kind of a weird coincidence of me selling on eBay and rediscovering some ways to make money with Pokemon. So, with a whole bunch of different factors, I hopped back into Pokemon, and I mean, from there it just like took off like crazy. Uh, I was selling on eBay just like weird old vintage sweaters and shirts, like like you see today, all the old band shirts, concert T-shirts, and stuff like that. Um, but Pokemon just like clicked for me, and yeah, it's taken me to being a full-time Pokemon card seller now. Uh, doing the podcast, trying to do YouTube every day, trying to do a little bit of Twitch here and there. Um, but yeah, man, it's just it's very, very common story that you'll hear from everyone else.
Mhm,
That was a big time for Pokemon. The resurgence, I guess, of Pokemon was that 2015-16 era.
mhm. Yeah, and you're right. I think that most people have a similar story. They have that kind of hiatus that they went through, maybe early 2000s until for many of us around 2016, the Pokemon Go era. And that's, for me as well, that's really when I got back into Pokemon. At the time, I was actually a practicing financial advisor. And I started watching early videos of like Gem and Pokemon, primetime Pokemon, guys like that, and realized that, wow, like this stuff is actually still around. It baffled me that many of these vintage products were still even around. And I think, I've heard similar things from you, but when you look out there and you think to yourself, there cannot be that many of these left. There cannot
Hmm.
be that many of these out there. For me as a finance guy, I saw that as an opportunity, you know what I mean, to and I saw also, as I started to learn more about PSA grading and individually graded cards, I started to kind of put the pieces together and kind of uh, analogously compare that to the financial markets. And I've talked about this in some of my other videos as well, of how sealed products, how they're kind of similar to bonds, and that they have a pretty steady value, and how they have a tendency to increase over time, but they're kind of that safe investment, whereas individually graded cards are more, they fluctuate more, much
Hmm.
like stocks, and there's different
Yeah.
grades of that as well. So I'm interested to know, what was it? Obviously you were probably just out of college, so like many
Yeah.
of us, you broke as a joke, and just trying to find some ways to make money. And I've also heard on one of your podcasts that you, at that time, you were going through some type of illness at that time, correct? And
Yeah.
we're just trying to kind of get into this to kind of get by and have a little bit of income.
Yeah. Coming out of college, I was extremely sick. Uh, had some crazy stomach issues. That was later diagnosed as ulcerative colitis. For those that are interested, they can look it up. Uh,
Mhm,
we don't need to go into details on it, but it really changed my entire life, like my entire social life. It 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 destroyed my it just created this huge anxiety and destroyed my ability to go out to unfamiliar places and be in large crowds and do these things that I was doing my entire life. I mean, I consider myself, I was a fairly popular kid, you know, high scorer of the basketball team throughout my whole life basically. Like, you know, I had a life that was very enjoyable. I mean, typical jock, right? And this just, I just hit a wall where I got extremely sick. And although I was able to fight through it for the first couple years out of college, I had a great job. So, which actually came from my connections of selling through eBay, where uh, one of my dad's friends was selling old pocket watches, coins, and all this stuff. And I was getting him, 10, 20 times more than what he was just taking them to local dealers. So it's
mhm,
like, oh, you can sell, come to our company, learn how to sell in the corporate world. And I started selling robotics. So, for the first couple years there, real solid job. Uh, didn't have my eye on Pokemon yet. I was paying off student loans. I was, still trying to figure out what was going on with my health while still enjoying life. And then I actually moved out to California, where I got a real nice raise out there because of standard of living.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and as soon as I moved out there, things just escalated. And I lasted 4 months in California, had to fly back home to get surgery that basically left me bedridden for 9 months. And it's that's where I really dove into my childhood. When you go through a dark time, any depressive state, you look for anything that you can to bring you happiness. And it's really easy to go back to the time before that started happening. So,
Mm-hmm.
I was back home, back at my parents' house, and I started digging through stuff, found Pokemon, found my Dragon Ball Z cards, uh, and yeah, I was worried about paying my rent. That I still had that apartment in California. I had
Wow.
medical bills coming up. Short-term disability and all that helped out great as well. I had actually done a GoFundMe, which really kept me out of debt in the beginning
Mm-hmm.
there, and I can't thank those people enough. One of these days, I hope to go back through that entire list and pay them back in some way.
Mm-hmm. That's
Um,
awesome.
but that was like the real catalyst. That's where I was just sitting at home watching Gen Mit Pokemon, watching Primetime, watching these guys like we all did, and found out that like Pokemon can be more than just a trip of nostalgia, just collecting. It could be a business as well. So the very first thing that I ever bought was actually two sealed Team Rocket booster boxes that I found on Craigslist. And
Wow. Of all
uh,
places.
yeah, and the guy had one box shown for $700. It was an unlimited Team Rocket box, and I started lowballing him, and he came back to me and said, "Hey, I got two boxes. Just we'll do the original price of 700 for both boxes." I was like, "Sweet, all right, let's do it." Drove up to see him. One of the boxes was actually first edition, and knowing Team Rocket, it's very hard to tell that it's first edition because it's a black stamp on a black box, so it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of hidden. So I was hiding my emotions when I first saw it, and I got both boxes for $700, and that was the very first flip that I ever made, and that's kind of where I started building my Pokemon off of, was that purchase.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just like you, I mean, I'm not extremely analytical. I don't look at the data points. I just find it extremely tedious and boring. um, I just have a great intuition and great taste, is what I've been saying lately. But
Mm-hmm.
that was the first thing I leaned on, was sealed product is the mutual funds of Pokemon, and
Right.
and
Right.
graded cards are the stocks. And uh, I mean, growing up in a very financially sound household, my dad's an accountant. That's what I knew. That was the lingo as far as I could go that I knew, and it was an easy way to draw a comparison. So I kind of followed that path really early. Was
Mm-hmm.
dive into sealed product, and uh, there was a little bit of a enjoyment factor of opening packs. So I mean, I think we all share that. The true way to enjoy Pokemon is opening packs, because
Mm-hmm.
it's that scent, it's that feel, it's that what's in there. So I
Mm-hmm.
was opening up a ton of packs, and at the same time taking notes of weights of packs, understanding how they were sealed, what they look like. I was taking in as much information as possible, because I knew from the sports card world of reseals and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
I spent a lot of money early on teaching myself. And a lot of people don't realize that, you know, all the random people jumping into buying sealed products, not understanding what reseals look like or feel. And um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy that I was able to do that when I did. So that helped me build a knowledge and build kind of the brand name around sealed product, because that's what I was doing. So it was a great way to start building Pokemon Radar.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you talk to people who started around the same time that we did, around 2016, and you compare that to now how people get their start. For me, it was very similar. It wasn't necessarily just sealed products that I initially started investing in. What I was most familiar with were the individual cards, and so for one, I had a lot of cards in binders still from when I was a kid. So I was like, well, there's a free form of capital sitting there. And so I started to educate myself on, PSA grading and exactly what the values of those cards were, started to flip those, and then started to reinvest a lot of those profits then into sealed products.
Mm.
Now, obviously, 2016, even 2017, sealed products were at a deep discount compared to what they're at now. So I guess what I would ask is, once you started investing in sealed products, where did you go from there? You started to reinvest that money, but did you start to dive more into graded cards? Did you just kind of reinvest that into more sealed products? Where did you go from there to kind of expand your business and reach that wider audience?
Yeah, I really just for the beginning, for the first few years, I was just reinvesting and building a position in sealed products. I had this goal in mind to get one of each box and to have the first edition base set, but kind of strayed away from that. I value relationships more than anything. I mean,
Hmm.
Pokemon in normal life everywhere. I think I like to say I'm a collector of relationships. I love talking to people, learning from people, and being able to share each other's stories. That's one of the reasons I started the podcast, is to get everyone's story out there. That's what I truly love and enjoy doing. And with that, I guess, business model, you create opportunities in a lot of different avenues. And I, for whatever reason, from 2015 to 2000, even like the end of 2019, I basically had sources of sealed products sitting there waiting for me to pick up and buy, that
Hmm.
a lot of others were just astounded by. So some could say it's lucky in a sense, but and there's luck involved with everything. But I just,
Yeah.
the work that I put in, and the effort was put in the correct avenues. So um, I built up. I think I had 30, 40 sealed boxes and a ton of sealed packs by the end of 2019.
Hmm.
And at that time, things had gone pretty crazy. They like 3, 4x, right? And
Hmm.
I'm always comparing this to the stock market. You're happy with
Right.
5, 10% on a yearly
Hmm.
basis. So I'm like, this is crazy. I need to start moving stuff, pay off my student loans, pay off my car, you know, do real things with this money that it's earned. Because I had 95% of my net worth in Pokemon cards, and probably still do today.
Yeah.
Um, it's and at that time it wasn't really it wasn't my business. It was a hobby. I was working
Hmm.
a 9 to 5 job doing sales, and when you look at it from that aspect, putting anything more than like 20% maybe into collectibles is just not okay. It's not a
Hmm.
smart thing to do based on traditional outlooks. But um, there were a few factors where I decided to start moving essentially all of my sealed product. Number one was I wanted to pay off all my debts. I did not want
Hmm.
to be chasing anything, chasing the bank anymore. I listen
Right.
a lot to Ramsey,
Dave Ramsey.
Dave Ramsey, and
Hmm.
I guess he caught me at a bad time because it kind of pushed me to sell. But I sold a lot to pay off debts. I try to get cheeky and play the game of, oh, coronavirus and market economy is going to crash. So I sold a lot more out of fear. And
Hmm.
then there was also a side of me that was kind of satisfied and bored of doing sealed product and wanted to venture into the trophy card world
Hmm.
of Pokemon. Um, I hit a wall of knowledge and history and variances of sealed product that was out there. I understood it all. I actually discovered one. I found out where the corrected Blanche Charizard came out of, the actual sealed booster boxes, what they look like,
Hmm.
which is a really cool thing. And then yeah, so I just like hit this wall of lack of information. So I wanted to find something else that I could spend my time on and get my brain working.
Hmm.
Um, and that's when I moved my cards, my sealed product again towards the debt that I had, and then started buying up some trophy cards out of Japan.
Interesting. Now, when you decided that you were ready to start moving that inventory and allocating it towards these other areas, were you considering at that time maybe moving it into other asset classes, maybe moving portions of that into the stock market, into real estate, into any of those other areas to diversify yourself? Or were you thinking, I've taken a strong position in Pokemon. I've garnered this knowledge. I've got this insight. So I really just, my diversification is going to come in the other assets within the Pokemon realm.
Yeah, I was in a mindset where I was okay with playing the slow game. I had a great job. I was back home, and I had actually moved back home to Michigan. Uh, because after my surgery, I went back to California for a few years and then moved back.
Hmm.
So I was back home. Cost of living went way down. I was making good money. I was kind of ready to lower that position in collectibles. So part of that large sale that I did at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, I maxed out my Roth 401k or IRAs,
Hmm.
um, and I actually put $10,000 into a trading account just to start kind of learning that avenue because I'm really illiterate in trading stocks. So I've picked up a little bit there, and I but by the time we hit I think May or June, I took it all out to buy more Pokemon. So um, I did make 20-30% on what I was doing. I made 2-3 grand
Hmm.
trading just random stocks, and I was still just uncomfortable with not knowing what was happening. And I
Hmm.
realized I know Pokemon. This is what I'm comfortable with. There's a reason that it got me to this point. Let's just keep going all in and all in and all in.
Hmm.
So took
Hmm.
it out and threw it back into Pokemon, and that's when, yeah, I bought my first trophy Kangaskhan. I bought a PSA 7 for 16,000, sold it a couple weeks later for 27. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh, here's a real opportunity.
Yeah.
And I just kept going after the Japanese market for trophy cards, and yeah, things have been going really well in that aspect. So,
Hmm.
um, I ended up leaving my job in September to take on Pokemon full time, uh, just to see if allocating more time towards it would, make up for that lost income. So I'm still figuring that out. It's still new. It's been 3 months, 3.5 months. So I don't know where it's gonna go, but right now it's a business, so I'm more than comfortable having all my net worth in Pokemon. Uh,
Hmm.
but I'm sure that mindset could change if I swoop back into another job and look at it as an investment instead of my main source of income.
Hmm. And that was one of the other things that I wanted to discuss with you because I heard that on one of your recent podcasts as well, is that you had recently left your 9 to 5 and now are focusing solely on the Pokemon business as well as content creating as well. You're putting out a lot of content. But we've got 3 podcasts now. We've got
Two,
Collectors with Card.
yeah, I've got two. I've got Collectors with Cards, Drinking Coffee. That's my solo one where I bring on other collectors that, really, really historic collectors. I mean, the biggest names that you may or may not have ever heard of.
Hmm.
And then I recently started one with my buddy Sean, Squeaks Game World, uh, Collectible Conversations, and that's more of a uh, news outlet, modern, or yeah, there's a modern Pokemon mix in there as well. So kind of
Hmm.
current event Pokemon podcast. And I may or may not be throwing the idea around doing an actual solo one uh, without any guests to see how that goes.
Yeah, because I could have sworn that I had still seen episodes of the PokeRadar podcast
Yeah,
dropping. So you're still kind of got one foot in the door on that podcast as well, and then considering another one.
yeah. I still upload all the new podcasts like under that playlist. I
Hmm.
have been thinking about just really separating it and making that the solo podcast. So we'll see. I'm putting together ideas. I'd like to keep it shorter. A lot of my videos are hour, 2, 3 hours long. It's a lot for people, but Um, so yeah, that's being thrown around right now, and I'm
Hmm.
not exactly sure where that will go, but yeah, content creation's a weird business. I don't know what I'm doing. Do you know what you're doing? I don't.
It's funny because I compare it a lot to, I'm sure for you it's the same thing when you started out with Pokemon. There was a huge learning curve, and so you just kind of learn along the way. And I'm sure you can attest to this, but the more people that you talk to and the more people that you associate with, um, the more knowledge that you gain. Just
Mhm.
like you were saying, a lot of those deals, a lot of those products that you garnered early on were because you had established such good connections and
Yeah.
relationships with people. And I've got another question for you, but now that we're on that topic, I wanted to ask you, after conducting so many interviews with some of these big name people, collectors, investors, other content creators, what are some of the main things that have reshaped or made you rethink how you collect, how you invest, and how you approach this new venture of content creation?
Yeah, that's actually really interesting because I hate to say it, but I get influenced pretty easy. So,
Hmm.
um, listening to somebody who's really passionate about something can change my mindset on a topic, uh, you know, pretty quickly. So, um, touching on the relationships and like YouTube, I mean, a lot of these guys have been so helpful. PokeRev, Real Breaking Nate, Rhyme Style, Lupox, all those guys have been extremely helpful with, PokeRan as well, helpful with um, just my really basic questions, which I'm sure they get all the time. So, um, the whole idea, it's funny, all these people that I've had on the podcast are first friends before just like, hey, like business associates basically. Like
Yeah.
I'm very involved, very engaged with the community, and have been for so long that I created those relationships in a friendly manner before a business manner. So
Hmm.
um if, I don't know if you've noticed, but I would say at least 50% or so of the recent podcasts, an item has been discussed where I ended up purchasing one afterwards. I haven't really talked about it too much, but like when I had Cool Trainer Ryan on, he talked about a sealed board game with packs in it. Ended up finding one on eBay and buying it. So like
Hmm.
it opens your eyes completely to so many different collectibles because like I said in the beginning, I was so focused on sealed product and buying all that up because I felt like it was a safe investment. I did enjoy owning it, but I got burnt out pretty quick. So having these conversations with various different collectors opens your eyes to so many different ways to collect, whether it is PSA cards, whether it's board games or Pop Tart cases of Pokemon on them. Like it it's really interesting where and I mean just in that aspect of what you can collect and how you can collect, but the really dangerous thing for me, like I said, since I do get influenced easily, is the understanding and feeling I have towards the market. I have the people have their own viewpoints on what's happening, and many are bullish, many are bearish right now.
Hmm.
And I think I've been leaning more towards the bearish side. Um, but again, that's really all just influence from the people that I'm talking to. I don't really have time anymore to sit down and look at what's going on eBay, what's going on and the prices on PWCC. Yeah, I'm streaming it, but I'm not analyzing it. I'm not collecting that data and really
Hmm.
looking at it in a way to understand where it's headed. Uh, it's all feeling and taking in so many different viewpoints, so much different information really clouds. I could see it clouding my judgment sometimes. So it's difficult. It's very difficult.
Hmm. No, and I think you're absolutely right. And, for me, being, or having been a financial advisor and still being engulfed in that world, you see the same type of, call it fear mongering. There's a
Hmm.
little bit of that there, where, people do, they get scared. They're scared about that next crash or that next dip. One of the sentiments that I've had and that I've compared the financial markets to Pokemon is that there's an investment strategy. And if you had your Roth IRA or your traditional IRA, you're probably using something similar. We call it dollar cost averaging. And that
Hmm.
basically just means that no matter what the market is doing, you're investing the same amount on the same periodic basis. Well, if the market is doing really well, then your investments are doing well. Everybody's doing well. But if the market is down, that's where a lot of people, that's the first sign of fear, and they start to run, they start to sell. But if you're plugging away at the same amount on the same basis, you're buying more shares of that security at a lower price so that when the market comes back up, when it inevitably will, you've experienced much more of a capital gain in your portfolio. And I've, suggested, not necessarily, I don't like to give the word advice. It's a very, very touchy word,
Yeah.
but for people to consider something similar within the realm of Pokemon, of, no matter what the market is doing, to me, it's always a good time to jump in because you can find products for a cheaper price. And then when the market does come back up, you can take advantage of that. I'm interested to see, of all of the things that you've heard from all the different guests that you've had, how that either falls in line or what you think about that kind of approach.
That kind of mindset is is a great way to control someone's emotions with investments. So purely on the investment side, keeping track of it that way is is great for your mood. I think it can help you kind of calm down when you see the market swing so much. Um, but for people that are treating it like a business, that's a I think it's a dangerous model because you need to constantly have income coming in and moving money
Mhm,
around and growing. So from just strictly an investment standpoint, that's a great way to look at it. Um, there's a lot more factors that goes into the collectible world than does a standard 401k portfolio.
mhm,
You have to take the time and effort to buy and actually sell the items physically, incur all the fees that come along with it, worry about the taxes, which, there's taxes with buying and selling stocks as well, of course, but um, it's a lot more complicated. So, for all the people that are hopping into this world, and this is the one thing that truly does scare me, and I don't think there's been a counter argument for it yet, um, because, well, I might just be backtracking myself here. The people that are coming in to this market to buy and invest in Pokemon don't have avenues or a a brand behind them to sell those cards. They're just buying it,
mhm,
seeing the value go up, but how are they going to collect that money? They can't just go onto their Fidelity account, click sell, and have the money.
mhm,
They have to find a different avenue. And yeah, there's PWCC, yeah, there's auction houses, but the fees that they charge can be extremely high and completely eliminate that
mhm,
gain. These meteoric rises we've seen kind of negates those fees because prices change so much in one day. But um, you really have to know what you're doing this for. What are your reasons behind buying Pokemon? And if it's for a business, I don't think you should look at it in that way. If it's for an investment and you have a separated portfolio of how much money, how much percentage of your net worth you want to put into it, yeah, that's a great way. But yeah, it's really an individual situation. Everybody's situation's different. Um, so that's how I feel about that.
mhm. And from the business perspective as well, one of the things that I've found is that it's important to have diversification in that area as well. because
Hmm.
there's certain things, there's certain products, whether it's sealed products, whether it's graded cards, and then you have a whole echelon of different graded cards and sealed products. What I have found is that it's good to have diversification there, so that if one area is just not doing that well, then you can kind of turn to another area as well. Much like in the same manner as in the investing world, you've got your bonds for your secure investments. You've got your stocks to where maybe you take a little bit more risk. Again, you can go up and down that echelon of risk tolerance. But is that kind of something that you have done? I mean, I it's kind of a rhetoric question because I know you have, but
Yeah.
kind of something similar that you've done with your business.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't like I haven't been as good about it as I should, where I really have it in plain sight in my Excel sheet, basically, of how much is where. But I have a decent sense of long-term, short-term, mid-term plays in
Hmm.
my inventory. Um, and yeah, that's one thing that I think everybody learned this year is having availability of cards force a uptick like this is very important. So
Hmm.
the amount of graded cards that are going to be in my inventory is going to be much higher than ever before. I will continue to slowly buy and slowly sell into the market and just wait until something like that pops up so I can sell it into it at the high point, or
Hmm.
what I think to be the high point. But I'm still buying sealed product. I mean, I've got tons of stuff back here.
Hmm.
Very risky investment of Dragon Ball Z, other non-Pokemon card games. Um, so yeah, I mean, I've got a sense of the short, mid, and long-term risk inventory that I have. Um, but yeah, again, it really just comes down to like my intuition. This is all huge risk. I mean,
Hmm.
it's cardboard, you know. I You got to tell yourself that is that people will only want it for nostalgic reasons, really, at this point. So um, I don't know. It's interesting. Again, I don't dive into it as uh, analytically as I should. I mean, I'm sure I could gain an edge here or there, but it's just all intuition.
Well, it served you well thus far, man. And honestly, there's a lot to be said about that as well, of just trusting your intuition and also trusting the experience and the knowledge that you've gained up to this point. You know, you've been around for a few years now. You started, when it was booming back in 2016, and then kind of rode through kind of a little bit of a trough through 2017, 18, and then as by about the end of 2019, when things really started to pick up again, you've been through those different waves, and you
Hmm.
understand kind of the mindset of the market. And with that, as we move into 2021, after such a big year for Pokemon, some of the biggest growth that we've seen since ever, really. um where do you see it going into this year, or 5 years from now? Just kind of that short term time
Hmm.
horizon.
Yeah, my my feelings have switched a little bit where vintage has gone so crazy that I really have no idea where it's headed. Um, the vintage market, with the influencers coming in, what they're buying, what they are buying next, is impossible to gauge. I can't figure that out. I mean, I do have a lot of insider knowledge, I guess you could call it, because I'm very well connected and hear things before many others do. But even with that, there's just so many outside factors now that no one has control on, that can fluctuate the market. So vintage to me is a real gray area right now. I definitely see opportunities in some areas, but most of it just I I'm not hopping on it because I'm just not sure. Uh,
Hmm.
for modern, things are just so exciting right now. Obviously, 25th anniversary. It's to me going to be the strongest year ever in modern Pokemon. Um, they just they simply can't meet the demand with the amount of supply they're putting out. And it seems like Pokemon's doing fine putting out supply. I don't know what their numbers look like, but no matter how much they put out, it's gonna get picked up. So modern just looks incredibly strong for the near term, like very near term. I'm worried deeply about modern in the next 3 to 5 years about bulk's probably going to be worthless because there's so much getting opened, there's so much going
Hmm.
to be available. um, and also I just did a video with Squeaks about kind of the junk slab era, or what we think is the junk slab era, because anything and everything is getting graded right now. And
Hmm.
do people really want these regular V's in PSA 9, 10, CGC 9.5, whatever, Beckett Black Label? Like, do people actually care about these cards? So I'm a little, I'm very, very bullish on on modern in like the 1 2 year time frame, but extremely bearish. Like I'm honestly not touching any of that because of that fear in the next 3 to 5 years. Um, but again, we're Pokemon is still so young, 25 years in, still making new products. We've got I think a solid 10 years before most of us are at our peak income levels, right? Is that
Hmm.
the general rule of thumb? So uh, vintage, long term, strong, great outlook, but near term it just seems like a risky business. I don't know. There's a
Hmm.
few things I have my eye on, but I just there's a lot of it that I just don't know.
Yeah, it is a strange time because here 6 months ago, I would say that most people would have been very bullish on vintage, and just the
Hmm.
opposite with modern. And it seems like that sentiment has changed now. Um, I can remember here just a few months ago, that base set unlimited booster boxes. I was seeing those go on eBay for 30, 35,000. And now those have dropped down to what, 20, 25, right around that.
Yeah.
And I think that, like you said, it's gotten to a point now where with vintage, many people have missed the boat on that. Like
Hmm.
that it's you're gotten to a point now where it's like you can buy a booster box, or you can put a down payment on a home, or you can buy a vehicle. So I feel like that boat has sailed for many people. And then what's left, the people that are still actively buying and trying to resell these products, there's undercutting now that's
Yeah.
going on, and that's why you're seeing these prices start to take a hit. Like you said, in the short term, I feel the same as you for the long term outlook of vintage. I think the meteoric rise that we saw over the course of 2020, those 300, 500, 600% growth rates that we saw, I don't foresee that happening over the course of the next few years.
Hmm.
Um, but like you said, there is opportunity to be had with modern. Um, the concern that I have as well with modern is the reprinting.
Mm.
You just don't know, when Pokemon is going to come back around. Like, for instance, I never thought that I would see the reprint of the Hidden Fates ETBs. Now,
Mm.
granted, they're highly allocated when they're released, and the amount of people that can actually get their hands on them is pretty limited. But that kind of opened my eyes to the fact that, wow, Pokemon really, with these modern products, they really can. Anything released over the last couple years, to me, is at risk of being reprinted. And is that a concern that you have as well?
Yeah. We saw it with the first time I saw it was Roaring Skies in like 2017. There was a Shaman EX that was extremely playable. It was like $150. Boxes were going up to $200, $300, and Pokemon just reprinted it, and it brought it right back down to 125 a box or whatever the retail price was. And it's opened my eyes to really trying to analyze sets to understand what they'll look like in the future. Because we look at a set like Champions Path that probably had more hype than Hidden Fates, more hype than a lot of other recent sets. Um, it was a terrible, terrible release. I mean, that was one of the most boring sets to open. Yeah, if you get a Charizard, you're having a great day. It's fun, but the rest of it is just what the heck's going on here? So a set like Hidden Fates that hits so many different points of interest of shiny Pokemon, full art Pokemon, Gen 1 Pokemon, Gen 2 Pokemon. It's really enjoyable all around to open, and it has the Charizard chase on top of it. So, um, that's something that will forever limit, I think, the price ceilings for a lot of these new products that come out. They'll have a slow growth rate over a 4-year period or so. I think that's typically, it used to be 2 years where they would have a window to reprint. Now it seems like they have 4 years, or at least that's what we see
Hmm.
in evolution. So,
Hmm.
um, understanding that information of, wait 4 years basically to really decide to make a acquisition, a big move,
Hmm.
unless you're buying at a distributor level and want to put some to the side when it first comes out. Uh, yeah, you really have to sit down and look at the set as a whole and not fall into that hype that is surrounded by it, by that release. So, um, you know, I I went in hard on Champions Path. Thankfully, GameStop never came through, and I I canceled my pre-orders. Otherwise, I'd have 4 cases sitting here, and or well, more than that. But yeah, it's something that I still don't understand very well from a business point of view. My main focus right now again is Japanese trophy cards, exclusive, real rare cards, I guess, because
Hmm.
I see a great opportunity there, and it has been very lucrative for myself lately.
Hmm.
Um, but understanding that and bringing that into, I guess, the another income source will be important to sustain, again, diversification of doing this as a business, because what I'm doing right now is not going to be repeatable, and I'm starting to see that right now. I'm having trouble finding some of the stuff because trophy cards are dried up and
Hmm.
the prices are getting so high that I just can't afford to take that risk.
Yeah.
Um, just, same thing as booster boxes. I'm not buying a base set box ever again unless I
Hmm.
win the lottery or something. Like 20 grand. That's a lot of money. And, uh, it's a slow sell if you break out the packs, and there's worries of reseals now, and
Hmm.
it's a very risky business now with the amount of figures that are attached to some of these items.
Hmm. Definitely. And one of the things that I try to do on my channel is I try to give people a little bit of insight into areas that I think are being overlooked or
Hmm.
perhaps undervalued. You might be familiar with oh god, I'm gonna blank on his name right now. Um, the big value investor lives in Omaha, Warren Buffett. Gosh, I
Warren
can't believe
Buffett.
I was blanking on his name, but he really made popular this strategy of value investing, of picking up securities, specifically stocks on the open market that are being undervalued, by some kind of comparative measure, that we measure in the financial world. And I try to kind of apply something similar to collectibles as well, of maybe look into areas that are being overlooked, like for yourself. Not a lot of people were focusing on trophy cards. A lot of people were just focusing on the sealed booster boxes or the Charizards, and cards that the masses knew about. So you kind of
Hmm.
migrated to trophy cards. But are there other things, and maybe you don't want to divulge your secrets, but are there other things that you're maybe seeing trend right now, that maybe is being overlooked by the overall market?
Yeah, there's a couple items, which yeah, I honestly haven't touched base on in the past week or so, but mid-grade first edition base hollows to me seem extremely undervalued for what boxes are selling for, what packs are selling for, what tens are selling for. You can get a PSA 8 first edition hollow for less than $1,000. To me, that's a steal. Like that's the historic set, and a lot of people talk about the vast quantity of set cards out there, but when you throw a first edition stamp on there and it being base set, there is an actual limited quantity, I guess. So,
Hmm.
and that again is the number one chase that people will get when they want to get back into Pokemon is first edition base set. Uh, so that to me is something that I'm looking at, have been building a little position on, um, at least from what I saw in the past two or three PWCC auctions. They just were cheap to me. It just
Hmm.
didn't make sense. And also with the understanding of 2021 of what's going to happen with first edition base, I think we're going to have multiple box breaks and openings. There's going to be a lot of interest driving back into that set. Um, so there's probably even more opportunity within first edition base, probably Shadowless as well, uh,
Hmm.
that I should probably look more into. Um, Also, I think, just light sealed packs in general that are being sold on eBay for a decent discount. I mean, yeah, sure, you're not going to pull anything from it. So if you have the discipline to buy some of those and not open them, people are looking for that for their collection. Having a sealed artwork set of the original
Hmm.
packs is a great collection piece. It's great to put on a wall. It's great to look to hold on to. So I think light packs are a solid opportunity. Light vintage packs are a solid opportunity to buy right now.
Hmm.
Um, Again, unlimited stuff. There is, you'd be surprised at how much inventory is still out there. I mean, no one actually knows, but got a good feeling of how much is out there. So there's a lot of unlimited sealed boxes and packs. So try to stick to the first edition stuff. Um, and then I think there's just always opportunity within promos, Japanese cards, the upcoming uh, special delivery Charizard.
Hmm.
Hopefully, more promos enter the other regions, not just Japan. But um, I think there's always an opportunity there because they're cheap and affordable. So and they're just unique.
Hmm. Yeah, that is another thing that I wanted to ask you of what you thought about, or maybe what you're looking at with Japanese products. We've talked a lot about, really like English or North American type of products, but have you considered maybe like foreign? We were talking about first edition base set. You can still go out and find maybe a first edition base set German booster box or Spanish
Hmm.
booster box, which is at a considerable discount,
Yeah.
comparatively speaking. Um, is that an area that you've considered?
It's one I've always shied away from. Uh, it's just the market that I'm not in touch with. I
Hmm.
do speak with people from all over the world, but I'm not in it every single day, so I don't know what the true demand or scarcity of first edition German boxes are. Do the people in Germany and Belgium, do they want these boxes, like, or do they want first edition English?
Hmm.
The biggest market is in the United States. Thankful to be here and be a part of it. Um, but yeah, to me, it's too niche. You know, I talked to one guy on my podcast about the like Chinese base set and the limits that they were set over there. And again, China being a massive market,
Hmm.
I can see that being an opportunity, and I do agree with him in that side. But again, I don't have I'm not even extremely comfortable selling those high end of items overseas. You got to draw up
Hmm.
contracts, you got to worry about the import export fees, the shipping, the insurance. It's a very difficult process. So just that alone kind of keeps me away from buying into that stuff. And even the modern Japanese product, that I really don't understand. I don't know what the market is like in Japan for all that stuff. For whatever reason, I have a feeling that they have enough product for everybody to be happy there, and it's
Hmm.
just us greedy Americans wanting to create some value out of cards that most of us, honestly, we can't read. I mean, there is a slight difference in the format of the card, the coloration of the card, which is great. I
Hmm.
think that's unique, but for me personally, I'm just waiting on the English sets because I can enjoy the entire release, the entire card. It has a connection to all my other cards.
Hmm.
It's something that I don't really understand, and also setting up at a distribution level uh, over in Japan is a very difficult thing to do, and I
Yeah.
think that's just not really worth my time to do so at this point. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, that one I don't understand so much. The modern Japanese and why Evolution CP6 are selling for $2,000 or whatever they are, and I don't get it. I don't get that one.
Hmm. Do you think that maybe it's due to maybe not that card in particular, but we look at products like maybe the Kanazawa Pokemon Center box that
Mm,
was released for the opening of the new Pokemon Center in Japan. Um, to me, those are the type of products that whenever I look at it, and I've talked about this like with Shiny Star V and Shining Fates. Shiny Star V, the prices on that are pretty high right now. They're
mhm.
they're going for a good value, but you see it once the English equivalent is released, that Japanese product usually takes a hit as soon as the English equivalent is released because you're essentially getting the exact same products. And as you said, here in North America, this is the market. This is
Yeah.
where most of the popularity in lies.
Mhm.
So I'm just curious if maybe you've you've thought about some of those more exclusive products, the products that we don't see released
Yeah.
outside of Japan.
Yeah. I mean, I think those are great. That's part of my, uh, short term, I guess, inventory that I look at now. Like I bought over 100 of the Charizard Grand Prix promos that they've been
Hmm.
printing to oblivion, like they did with Red's Pikachu and all that. But
Hmm.
um, a lot of people don't know and aren't willing to learn how to buy that stuff from Japan, so they're either paying the premium here or you know just not buying it at all. But I think most of them are, a card like that, they're willing to pay the premium on. So
Hmm.
um, that's another thing. Those special releases, I think, are phenomenal. It's probably just a jealousy thing that like, why don't they just release all that for everybody in
Hmm.
English too? Like why didn't we get a Mario Luigi Pikachu box? Like I don't I don't get that one. Um, it's probably a cultural thing where they
Hmm.
really value the unique release of that ceremony of opening a new building, a new location,
Hmm.
and providing a special gift basically with that event. So yeah, that stuff's great. I mean, I I've never really bought too much of it because by the time that I hear about it or find it, it's really expensive already. But from what we've seen, those have a really solid, healthy growth pattern. So I'll probably be looking into getting those more often as they come out.
Hmm. Cool, cool. Yeah, and you're spot on there. Having had visited Japan,
Hmm.
they are a very communal and kind of nationalist culture. Not in the not in the bad sense of the word, but they do take pride in what they produce as a country, and I think that's why you don't see a lot of that released to the rest of the world because Pokemon was created there. I mean, it's arguably one of the biggest brands in the world, but definitely one of the biggest brands in Japan,
Hmm.
and they take a lot of pride in that. So I think you're right. I think that's why we don't see it. But
Mhm.
so now what I want to do is we're going to go ahead and move on to our last segment here. And this is basically questions from the community. So I let a lot of my community know that you were coming on, and there was a ton of questions that came in, but I went ahead and just picked out a couple of them here to go through that I thought were interesting. The first one comes from Rodolfo on YouTube. And his question is it possible that when Pokemon ends down the road, the value of these cards, first edition Charizard, trophy cards, illustrator cards, etc., would lose a lot of their value since there won't be a market for it, like what most of us have been accustomed to growing up? I think the core of his question here is the is the market going to change? Is the community going to change where they don't find the same inherent value in these cards that we have prized up until now?
Yeah, I mean, the simple comparison here is to look at other collectible markets. So um, the easy one to go after is stamps. You know, stamps is a dead market. I think there's like 5 people that still collect it. Um, but
Yeah,
those highest tier items, and he did mention the highest tier items basically in his question there. The highest tier stamps are holding their value from what I've seen in articles posted in news. Stamp sells for record price. So I, whenever this does happen with Pokemon, and I don't think it'll be in our lifetimes, those highest tier items will continue to hold value.
mhm,
In my opinion, it's just something that there will always be, as long as there's two buyers for it, there's gonna be people bidding each other up. So,
mhm.
uh, yeah, whenever that happens, 100 years from now, 200 years from now, whenever it is, I think the top tier items will continue to not only hold value, but increase. I mean, you've got 100-plus-year-old baseball cards that continue fetching record prices, and these people
Mhm.
never had the chance to see that guy play. They never had the chance to even watch him on TV or anything, right? Like, I
Right,
mean, sure you
right.
can go on YouTube or whatever, but it's that same sense of the top, 0.1%, I think will continue to hold value because it's history at this point.
Yeah, at that point, they've really become antiques. Not just
Yeah.
from a time standpoint, but also from just the scarcity of these
Mhm.
items. I agree with you. I agree. Well, cool. All right, our next question comes from Team Trubbish, also on YouTube. Do you see any correlation with modern Pokemon card collecting and the 90s sports card era, particularly if printing factories start working at full capacity during this year?
Well, I don't know if I had been born yet when the modern sports card or the 90s sports card era crashed, because I think that was like really early 90s, late 80s.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, just kind of the little research that I've done on that era of sports card and comparing it to what I'm seeing now, there's a lot of a lot of scary comparisons. Um, so yeah, I mean, I could see it happening. It also couldn't. Uh, there was a lot of fishy stuff going on back in the 80s and 90s that weren't regulated, I think, though, compared to today with the printing process and the manufacturing process. So, depending on that, which none of us know because that's all behind the scenes illegal activity. if 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 something like that is happening, 100%, like we're screwed on modern Pokemon.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, we did see one of the new Charizards basically get stolen and sold out of the factory. If
Yeah,
there was an employee there printing sheets of the shiny VMAX Charizard like they did with Ken Griffey Jr. rookie, yeah, exact
yeah.
exact same story.
Yeah,
But
yeah, you're right. It definitely runs the risk. And the other thing that I kind of derived out of this question was, when the pandemic starts to level off and more people start to go back to work, particularly to these printing factories, and to also more specifically to PSA Beckett grading companies. And we start to see this, a lot of people refer to it as a flood, this deluge of graded cards. Do you think that's something that is going to have an impact as well?
Well, yeah, we mentioned that earlier in the video, the little podcast I did with Squeaks about. I literally titled the video the junk slab era. You know, sports was the junk wax era because they printed so much of it. They were dumping mantle rookies into the ocean or whatever river that they were by. They
Hmm.
were giving away 86 Fleer Jordan rookie year boxes, like giving them away. They couldn't sell them for a nickel. Like it there was, and that's something that's where I see it happening with Pokemon is the junk slabs because um, I think Pokemon will always be fun to open. There's a competitive scene around it, so kids will continue to play it. So from a wax standpoint, a sealed
Hmm.
standpoint, I think it'll be okay. But yeah, the grading is going to be a different story in my opinion. There's just so many unlimited base set Charmanders, EVs, whatever graded that the market will not be able to absorb it.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess I would say that the only saving grace for it would be if we have another massive influx of new collectors into the hobby, which, is possible as we've moved into 2021, with it being the 25th anniversary of Pokemon, with the Olympics, if they should happen,
Hmm.
which will be taking place in Tokyo. I think there will be a lot of eyes on it. And as as well as anybody, because you took part with Steve Aoki in his charity box break, I could definitely see that this, and I've actually talked about it with on my other podcast as well, of the area of Pokemon content creating, of it moving off of YouTube. I mean, still being there, but moving off onto perhaps even bigger platforms, and being uh, basically projected out there to the wider audience. And, even especially if we get bigger name people like Steve, like Logan Paul, some of these other individuals, these really top tier influencers that collaborate. I could definitely see at some point, maybe even a news network picking up, a big charity box break, or even a big box break among maybe 4, 5, 10 or more of these individuals. So just interested to see what you think in that regard as well.
You know, I think YouTube is the biggest platform for something like this. You know, you look at the numbers that I was listening to David Dobrik's podcast. You know, he gets more views than MTV does.
Hmm.
I think there's going to be maybe an industry change or some sort of shift in the future with traditional media, but I think YouTube is the biggest platform. I think Logan Paul, honestly, was the biggest potential influencer for Pokemon. Now there's people like Justin Bieber, who had a little stint of I think he posted a story of buying some Pokemon cards.
Yeah.
I don't think he would ever get into the space of doing box breaks or anything like that ever. Um, it was just a perfect storm with Logan Paul. I don't know who would be bigger. I mean, even Steve, you know, um, his audience for this stuff is nothing compared to his music audience. He's
Hmm.
he's working on building it, as we can see with Aoki's Card House and Coffee Breakers and all that. But I mean, you look at his music views, he's got millions and millions and millions of views, and then you look at the card stuff, it's got thousands.
Hmm.
So, um, yeah, I think there's a lot of growing pains happening right now, but I've been thinking the same thing. Who's next? Who's gonna be the next person to really break this up? Because I mean, we saw it on Twitch. The biggest Twitch streamers that exist today did a whole Pokemon week of box breaks, and they did real legitimate boxes, Aquapolis and first edition Neo Genesis and all this stuff. So um, it's hard to figure out what's next. I haven't really been able to figure that one out yet. News outlets, I don't think there's much interest there. I think it'll just be laughable again to the people that aren't involved with it. They
Hmm.
they'll be shocked and go, "Wow, Pokemon's worth this much," and then you, me, whoever will get hit up by all of our high school buddies and aunts and uncles. So, as it normally does when there's an
Yeah,
article.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I just, I think that, and I think you're right, YouTube being the largest platform. Um, but I just feel like perhaps at some point, it will always remain the biggest platform on YouTube, but it just kind of expands, like you said, with
Yeah,
Twitch, it's going there, but perhaps even into more, traditional mediums as well. And then people that,
yeah.
people that like my parents, for instance, they're watching Fox News, or they're watching the Fox channel, and all of a sudden, hey, there's a special tonight, somebody's breaking Pokemon cards.
The one
But
big thing that I could see happening, and I don't know how it would work, but Barstool Sports, Dave Portnoy getting involved somehow with Pokemon
mhm.
breaks and having their gambling app basically involved with a
Oh
break.
yeah, yeah.
I can see something like that, and that would probably do more than Logan Paul did, I think, because
Hmm.
again, gambling's a terrible addiction, but there's a lot of people that when that Charizard's coming or or not.
If you're gonna gamble, at least do it with nostalgia, right?
I guess so. Yeah. I can't advise that either, but
Right, right. All right, one last question here. This one's a little bit more specific. This is from Scottamon G, also on YouTube. He says, I want your opinions on English Gold Star Pokemon cards. He asks, have you noticed that a lot of them can't even be found on eBay anymore?
yeah, it's been that way for a long time. I had gotten into Pokemon probably 6 months, a year after the fabled Gold Star bubble back in, like, I think it was early 2015, 2014 maybe. That was the one of the things that I heard about a lot, just word of mouth when I first entered the hobby, was Gold Star bubble. Um, I don't know exactly what it looked like, the price points that they were at and what they dropped to, but um, Gold Stars are interesting. They're really truly the only chase cards in vintage era, and it was again a dead time of Pokemon. Boxes
Mhm.
don't seem to be available. Uh, I think at this point, with the prices that are being thrown around on some of these boxes, that whoever had a warehouse full of them would have started bringing them out to sell them, but we haven't really seen that.
Mhm.
We've heard of 100K offers on a Deoxys box, but no one's taken it. To me, that's ridiculous. Um, but you would think it would drag more out. So yeah, gold stars are interesting. They're very interesting.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So yeah, I did that video again with Steve when he bought that entire PSA 10 set, and with PokeRev Rhyme Style and PokeRan, and like Rev said, if you want to collect the entire set mint, you have to open up millions and millions of dollars of boxes if you can even find them to
Mhm.
hopefully do that. So yeah, they're one of the truly rare set cards, and I think they have a bright future.
Yeah, yeah. And it's one of those, it's to me, it's also one of those cards that, you don't need to have those in a PSA 10, PSA 9, even a PSA 8. The near mint cards of those gold stars are still highly valued
Hmm.
and going for really good money. And like you said, it those came out during that downturn in Pokemon, and it's one of those things that a lot of people forgot about. And it also makes me wonder if perhaps, maybe 10, 20 years down the road, if there's certain modern cards now that certain chase cards, or maybe cards that aren't perceived as chase cards now, but will have some kind of inherent or subjective meaning behind them that will find later on down the road. You know what I mean? Where
Well, yeah, I mean, you see the gold cards that they have now, those are 1 and 2 boxes, kind of similar
hmm
to what we think the gold star pull rates are. And although they're less exciting because it's a some weird cape or a great ball or something,
hmm
and not a gold star Rayquaza, I think those are a great opportunity. Going back to some of the earlier questions, of what could be kind of bought up for even a near, mid, and long term outlook is these gold cards, these full art rainbow rare trainers and Pokemon cards. Um, I think there's possible opportunity there because they do have a rare pull rate, even with I mean, given the comparison to these EX boxes, there's a large amount of print runs,
hmm
many more boxes and packs available, but still a fun chase, a difficult thing to obtain a full set of.
hmm Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, cool, man. Well, I think that's going to do it for the questions that we had from the community. Before we wrap up here today, one of the things I always like to kind of end with just kind of a random question.
Hmm.
Now, there's been a lot. I guess this is more of a proposition than an actual question, but there's been a lot of trends in Pokemon that we've seen over the course of this last year. But perhaps one of the most prevalent trends that we've seen is that it seems like you can't be a good pokey tuber without a great beard as well. Now, I recently, with your recent podcast with Rev, I heard you kind of spouted out there to them. He's got a past history of dealing with beard care products, so
Yeah.
I'm putting it out there to you to put it out there to him that if you guys want to pursue that, I'd be more than happy to be the third face on the pokey beard line.
That's awesome. I did trim mine down a little bit. It was getting a little. I just had it for so long, and then I cut it down and realized I don't really have a chin, so I'm gonna grow it back out. But um, yeah, that's one of my. I do pick at him every now and then, like actually wanting to do it. Obviously, it would just be riding his coattails because he's he's the big name. Um, so maybe if that happens in the future, we'll let you know. Because I think we'll need more than just two faces on those, even though everyone will just be buying PokeRevs. Um,
Well, and we talked about it before, man. 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road, talking about those undervalued or obscure products. They'll look back. Hey, remember the Pokey Beard line? You guys
yeah,
remember
yeah.
that?
No, I agree with you. I think it would be funny. I mean, that like the hot sauce that he has going right now.
Yeah.
It's great. I've thought about that a lot with YouTuber merch about I hate how they present a lot of it, where
hmm
they just have like crazy designs and their face on it, but a lot of that is potentially going to be like the next like concert t-shirts. These celebrities pay thousands of dollars for a old random Eminem concert t-shirt. So
Yeah.
buying like the first PewDiePie t-shirt that ever came out or whatever, it could do the same thing with us PokeTubers.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you're right, man. Well, hey, Radar, I truly appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for taking your time out to come here and speak with me tonight. You've dropped a lot of good insight for all of the community. For anybody that maybe has not discovered you yet, has not listened to your awesome podcast, where can they find you?
Yeah, a whole bunch of different places. So Pokemon Radar on Instagram has all my links there. Pokemon Radar on YouTube, uh, Spotify, Apple, and I'm on Twitch as well, Poke_Radar. So if you see the logo, that's me. You'll be able to look around and you'll probably find me. But thank you for having me on. I've been watching some of your stuff and appreciate the financial insight that you have on things as well. a nice change from all
Well,
the
thank you,
pack
man.
openings.
Yeah. Well, again, man, thank you so much. And guys, we will see you on the next one. Just a little sneak peek. Next episode, we are going to be featuring the #1 Pokemon or English Pokemon card collector, David Person. I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right. So look
I
forward to
think so.
that. But Radar, again, thank you so much, man. And other than that, guys, we will see you next time right here on the Pokemon Masterclass series. Take care, guys.